with enhancing intellectual capacity is to encourage people to think in triangles so they can always think beyond ones and twos, yeses and nos, and look for what is a third possible option.
And that helps us to become much more critical in our thinking, our analysis, and ultimately better decisions that we can make as a result of it.
Yeah, and most importantly, be better problem solvers.
Better problem solver. Welcome to the Game Changers Mindset Podcast. I'm your guide, Jeffrey Allen, and this podcast exists for people who believe life isn't just something we experience, it's something we shape. Alongside of me, and Game Changers founder, is Assad Koshul, whose work centers on one powerful belief that real transformation begins with how we think. We have got quite a bit of work to dive into in this episode, and one thing I'd like to go back and just reinforce, and that is we keep using the reference to triangulated thinking. Mm-hmm. And just, if you'll expound on that just one more time, because we want to keep our listeners abreast of why that model.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's great to be with you again, Jeffrey. Yeah, so when we say triangular thinking, what we're saying is that one of the challenges of the current and overall environment, irrespective of where you are, is we are in the era of false choice. And what that means is that many times people are boxed into one or two choices. And what we're saying is generally there's a third choice that is ethical. Okay? And what we want to encourage with expansive thinking, with enhancing intellectual capacity, is to encourage people to think in triangles so they can always think beyond ones and twos, yeses and nos, and look for what is a third possible option.
And that helps us to become much more critical in our thinking, our analysis, and ultimately better decisions that we can make as a result of it.
Yeah, and most importantly, be better problem solvers.
Better problem solvers. Okay, so speaking of that, the clip we're going to look at today is from the movie Iron Will. And that specifically, we're going to talk today about moral development is not automatic. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. What we mean by moral development is not automatic. The values which we espouse or hold dear, they're a product of how we were raised, the environment we are in. And if you want to have high moral values, it takes effort.
Good way to put it.
And it takes a certain amount of sacrifice. And in many ways, it takes making difficult decisions that are not convenient.
Okay. So in this clip specifically, we're going to see just a setup basically for that.
Yes.
For people who've not seen the movie Iron Will, do you mind elaborating on that a little bit?
Yes. Yeah. So Iron Will is a true story that takes place roughly at the time of World War I. It's a true story of a young man who's 18 years old. He's just turned 18, and his father, who's the chief breadwinner, dies.
Okay.
And so now the family is going to lose its farm, and he is not going to be able to go to college, given the situation that they're in. It's just him and his mother. And so he enters a 500-mile dog sled race that the winner gets $10,000.
Of which he's never done dog racing or dog sledding before.
No, he has done dog sledding.
He has, okay.
Yeah, because, they live in a thing. But he hasn't entered this type of competition before. So he enters the competition, and actually, we don't want to spoil, he wins the race.
Right.
And it's a story of handling adversity. It's a story of hard work. It's a fantastic story.
But there is a moral challenge that goes on, and specifically in this clip.
Yes.
As it relates to him being bribed, I believe, to drop out of the race, correct?
Exactly. So what it is there's one chief sponsor, but then there are also a couple of other titans. And the titans are all sponsoring racers. So this one titan, his name is Agnes Mateague, he actually goes the day before the last day of the race, because the race is a multi-day race, and it's 500 miles in the wilderness. Okay. Gosh. And Agnes Mateague offers Will a bribe of $3,000 if he drops out of the race.
Okay.
And the prize to win is $10,000. So imagine being an 18-year-old, you are racing, and he has really overexerted himself already, and he doesn't even know physically if he can finish the race.
Right.
And now here's an option. take the $3,000, which is a sure thing, or try to finish the race.
And he's conflicted in the fact that even taking that bribe, the initial bribe, would really resolve a lot of his financial problems.
Exactly. Yes.
But instead, as he's gone through this race, his moral character is coming of age.
Yes. It gets more and more enhanced due to the adversity that he's facing. Not just that he's in such a competition, but due also the natural elements. Like even within the race, his sled gets damaged. Okay. His lead dog gets injured. So, and basically, I mean, his physical safety is tied to the dogs.
Right. And in all of this process, he's having to make spur of the minute choices that have to do with life or death.
Yes.
He's having to think long term for the impact that's going to be on his family, the farm, his future, all of those things. And he's trying to weigh each of those probably every day in this journey. And then he's constantly being challenged by the titans that are trying to bribe him. But now he rises to the occasion pretty triumphantly, where in the clip, despite his fatigue and the fact that he's been injured, and his lead dog's been injured, and his sled is injured, all of these mounting problems, he still chooses to go on and finish with the integrity that's been developing within him.
Yes, and that's what is so fantastic about this. So this was one of the most powerful lessons that that we go through, especially in developing markets.
Elaborate on that.
Because in developing markets, right, there's not as much transparency. It's just a general rule, right? And the bureaucracy is a lot more difficult to deal with. Right. And so many times the easiest way is, let's call it a commission. Taking or giving commissions help expedite things.
Right.
And here what he does is he makes a decision, no, I'm not going to accept a bribe. Although it would alleviate even the $3,000. Again, this is $3,000 from 1918, which is the equivalent of more than $60,000 today.
Right.
So him not taking that reveals a lot about his character. So what you have here is one major theme you have here is character evolution. That Will is young, but he is not a sellout. And he can't be bribed to withdraw from the race. Because this one titan, Agnes Mateague, who tries to bribe him, he's sponsored a racer, right? And then in addition to that, they've also placed bets on who will win and who will finish.
Yeah.
Okay. Then Will's identity. So the two very big themes here are character evolution and identity. Will's identity is tied to honesty. He will not take the easy way out. He will finish the race.
And that was even demonstrated at the beginning of the movie by him making the choice to save the family, to step up in the absence now or the loss of his father.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see that kind of in its infancy, and then it grows throughout.
Yeah, exactly. And as you see, just within the race in real time, his character is getting more and more enhanced due to the challenges he's facing. And he is being able to meet those challenges successfully. So, another theme here is, that he's developed a fairly decent relationship actually with a journalist, Kingsley, who's covering the race. And the journalist Kingsley is a journalist. He just wants to cover a story.
Really, but he becomes kind of his cheerleader.
He becomes his cheerleader. And he's the one who coins the term Iron Will. And so Kingsley helps Will by actually threatening Mateague that he will expose him in public for interfering in the race.
I do remember that. Yeah. Quite to the shock of Will, I think, at that point, too, wasn't it? Because they had been friendly. He and Kingsley had been friendly. But the fact now that Kingsley is standing up for him to finish and to succeed. Sometimes I think that's all it takes for any of us when we're lagging behind and we're wanting someone just to believe in us enough to get us across the finish or to get us to the next step.
Yes.
So not uncommon to what we see in homes and relationships in our community.
Yes. So from, a triangular thinking, if we visualize a triangle, the three parts of the triangle are, one is adversity is a character enhancer. Okay. And expediency is the easy way out. That's the counterweight part of the triangle. And here you see basically core belief / character. He has a viable option that can at least alleviate some of his financial burdens, right?
Right.
Because part of his motivation, obviously, for entering the race is the prize money.
But now I'm projecting, despite the prize money,
Yes.
Will is still concerned, or at least demonstrates in the movie, throughout the movie, that he has a real desire to live with this integrity, to live beyond reproach even,
Yes.
and to bring honor to his family and himself, and then by not sacrificing anything for a quick fix, ultimately they all succeed long term.
Exactly.
That's kind of a delayed gratification, and that involves a whole nother level of discipline when it comes to how we make decisions in business, in our homes, and surrounding areas.
Yes.
Right? What we represent, what we stand for. This is a real big graphic visual of that.
Yes. Because even when he's training for the race, Ned, who's the person who is training him, he says, you're going to have to be friendly with the dark. You're going to have to run longer and sleep less. Your only chance to win is to run longer and sleep less.
Right.
So here he is, again, athletic competition, it's a drama, right? But here, you're also battling the elements.
True.
Snow. And
But what's the difference between that and our own lives? I mean, if we start to look at it not as a sprint, but as a marathon, would we in fact become better paced at how we choose to succeed? What tasks we choose to take on, and really kind of how to flesh out the dreams that we have inside of it. Because we begin to understand that it takes more than just, oh, I want to do this, and then magic thinking that it's going to happen overnight.
yes, we had lessons before where we talked about experience is the best and worst teacher. But here you see, it's easy to make the correct decision under favorable circumstances.
Right.
And to make difficult decisions, the right decision under difficult circumstances, that's what really is a character enhancer. So here what we're saying is, bottom left of the triangle, adversity, a character enhancer.
Right, right.
And we really want to highlight that. I mean, so we have to emphasize this is a true story.
Right. But, there's something you've coined in all the discussions we've had. You keep referring back to this creative tension, or this tension that in a triangulated model forces us to hopefully rise to the greatest opportunity or the greatest decision. Without that tension, we're not going to have that opportunity, are we?
Yes. No. So what you find with, this is true with a lot of athletes who actually even get to the professional ranks. Many times they have like an older brother who's a couple of years older than them, and they're trying to keep up with him.
Right.
And that helps them be better because they're trying to compete with someone who's older.
Right. And that challenges.
And it challenges them. And so anyone great has dealt with adversity.
Right.
It could be a myriad of different things. It could be health issues. It could be competitors. It could be financial challenges, etc.
We've all had our challenges.
We've all had our challenges. But here it is that how do you view this adversity? Because on one hand, he can take the easy way out.
Okay, so that may be the magic question here is then, when we come to the adversities in our life, we have to make a choice about how we view it.
Yes.
In my line of work, if we have a couple of choices. We can either minimize it, we can go through it, or we can go around it.
Yes.
Going around it is nothing more than avoidance, and we build a whole other level of skills, a skill set for avoidance, and we'll do that more and more and more. That's why I think the challenge is for us not to quit early. When we step over it, somehow that gives us an intellectual freedom to say, yes, I have recognized the problem, but rather than deal with it, I'm just going to step over it, right? So then we can kind of feel half good about the way we go. The bigger challenge is to turn around and integrate it for what it is. And then from that, to take action steps.
Yes.
That's personally, that's relationally, that is in corporate America, that's all of those things. How do you think we get to the place where we can be more accepting that the challenge is part of the process?
I think being consciously aware that challenges are a part of life and a part of growth. And you have a situation that there are two obvious options. Easy way or just persevere.
That's binary thinking.
Exactly.
Either or, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
But here, he's looking at this and saying, if I take the easy way out, I'm also tarnishing my father's legacy who died.
Mm-hmm.
And so what he decides to do is say, no, I'm going to finish the race. And even the Titan is very surprised or shocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
The business Titan. He's like, wait a second, most people, the way he understands it, the Titan, most people have a price.
Right. And all he's got to do is find it, and then ultimately he gets to do whatever he wants to
Exactly.
do. Right.
And so let's look at it also from the Titan's perspective. He's a little baffled. He's like, wait a second, I didn't know from $500. I didn't know from $1,000. I offered him basically 30% of the prize money.
Right. And then didn't he also up that ultimately to $5,000?
No, I think he starts at 3,000.
Okay.
He starts earlier. He makes an offer earlier of like $1,000.
Yeah, it was minimal.
It was minimal.
Right.
Before this specific clip. But here, this is the last day before, this is the final night of the last day of the race.
And Will, in his exhaustion, really could have given up.
Exactly.
He still would have walked home with money.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it all the time. Now, to completely sidestep and rabbit trail this, currently there's a show called Mr. Beast, right?
Okay.
And in Mr. Beast, people are asked to make these challenges every time, and they're presented with hundreds of thousands of dollars to stop and either sell out or give on. It's been an interesting watch to see where people's character stops and starts, what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do. And here we go from how long? 1918?
Yes.
However many years ago. This kind of challenge has never left any of us in humanity.
Yes.
This is this is constantly going to be a challenge for every one of us, no matter how young or old we are, in all of our decisions. Yeah. But what it does tell me is that the more we practice making good character choices, making the harder choices in many situations, the easier it gets to live successfully.
Yes.
And almost to kind of move into an automated response of, we're doing well, we're doing well.
Yeah, and this is the thing, that what happens is, especially when you make character-based decisions and you understand that pressure reveals values and core personality traits, that actually has a downstream effect for most of us who are parents and on the team that we're managing. Because people respect that. People respect character. People respect taking a stand.
And they respond to it.
They respond to it.
Yeah.
So when you're leading a team, this is very important that your team understands that when you're in the boardroom, our department head or team lead is going to advocate for us.
Right.
And for lack of a better word, not throw us under the bus, even if we've made a mistake.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you cover the faults of staff, but it does mean you protect the staff.
And that's how we lead with integrity.
Exactly.
That's how we model that in our families. That's how we model it in our business.
Yes.
Is to always choose the acts of integrity.
Yes.
It requires the humility in us to be able to do that, because we're not necessarily going to get the instant gain or the instant gratification from it.
Yes.
We're going to not be as popular with some people who are just wanting it to be over and done with.
Yes.
So we're always going to be faced with that conflict.
Yes.
It's a big takeaway. We can't avoid that.
Yeah.
In every decision that we make. Okay, with that, wrap this up for me in a way that I can take this, that our listeners can take this into their lives and demonstrate this.
Yeah.
Can you?
Okay. Yes. So one is, again, the visual proverb. Bottom left is adversity, a character enhancer. Bottom right is expediency and the easy way out. And at the top is character or core beliefs. That's the visual proverb. And in the middle of that, you have creative tension. And in the middle of all of these visual proverbs, at least where is creative tension.
Right.
And closing remarks, one, integrity under pressure defines true character more than taking the easy or dishonest route. And I am using the word bribery here because it's a bribe. Agnes Boutique offers a bribe. I won't use the term that is sometimes used in developing markets.
Or today we would call it incentives or
exactly.
Things like that.
Yeah, so bribery and interference are moral tests. And loyal actions matter for long-term success.
Go back to a moral test. Expound on that a little bit.
It's a moral test because especially when you can gain financial rewards, because there are three drivers of temporal human behavior.
Which are?
Power, pleasure, possessions.
Okay.
Okay. Possessions is money.
And in an instant gratification society, we're looking at possessions helps to measure that
Exactly.
against our peers.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. And so here it's a moral test, and Will passes this test. And again, he passes it under extreme difficulty because he's not really sure if he can even finish the race.
True.
Because when you watch the clip, he says, okay, I'm going to race, and he asks Kingsley to move his arms and legs to get the blood flowing.
Right.
That's how physically exhausted he is. Not just mentally. Physically exhausted, his body is beginning to say no.
Right. He's shutting down.
Yeah.
He's shutting down.
So
Can I back up a minute on this? You use the word moral in development, moral integrity, a number of those things. How do we measure that in our experiences today? Are we talking about just right and wrong, or are we talking about does morality have a binary response to it? Does it have a black and white response to it, or is it broader and we just haven't applied that?
No, it's broader because again, the modern. So, for example, certain things in morality are very obvious. Okay, we all believe murder is wrong. Those are things obvious. But again, in business environments, there's a lot of fluidity, and to have a moral compass to see what you understand as ethical is extremely vital. And I think one of the challenges that we're facing in the modern business environment here in the States is that is it really the best way to lead a company to just be looking at only at the next quarter results?
Right.
And it really is not if you're looking to build sustainable business models that will have long-term effects that benefits the company, that benefits the shareholders, and then benefits also the employees, et cetera, et cetera. But now, as a general rule, most of it is what's best for this quarter. And that inevitably is sacrificing long-term benefits.
So in the development of my life and my experiences, it would require me to think beyond immediate and delayed. It requires me to consistently apply that model, or the triangulated model, to my thinking.
Yes.
And the more that I practice that, I'm assuming the more I want to say success, but I'm also thinking it leads to a sense of satisfaction and peace. Like I'm making decisions I can live with.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that when you make decisions that are morally correct, they may be some short-term pain, but as a general rule, there's long-term benefits. And that's how most of humanity has understood it. And this is a universal principle. And one also thing I want to highlight here is, so Will is talking to the journalist Kingsley, and Kingsley is covering the race for the newspaper, and that's how Will has become basically a cultural phenomenon through the newspapers. That there's this young man that's competing in this dog sled race, and that's why he's going to these. And so narrative control matters. Right? But alignment with honesty and core values is ultimately what should guide outcomes. So, Jonathan Haddad, he phrases this very well. And there are multiple studies to prove this. It's kind of human nature to want to, he says most people are interested in looking right, not necessarily being right.
Fair.
And that's human nature. You're a therapist, you know this extremely well. But here, narrative control matters. Will has become, in one respect, like a national phenomenon. There's an 18-year-old kid, and the fact that he's even made it this far is a miracle. But alignment and honesty and core values is what should drive the outcome. And we can't control outcomes, but we can control our effort.
And our actions.
And exactly, and our integrity-based decisions. And, early decisions influence momentum. And, we say how a tree falls. So from the very beginning, Will is committed to hard work, running longer, sleeping less. Right?
He put his all into it. And that's also a requirement for success.
Exactly.
Practical living. It's going to cost us something.
It's going to cost you something.
But it's worth it.
Yes.
We've come to the belief, I think, that it's not, when in fact it is.
Yes, and I'm sure you've seen this. We've seen this many times that, you put a lot of effort in and you may not get the results that you thought. You may not get the promotion that you thought.
Not immediately.
Not immediately. But usually good things happen to good people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we try to live our life.
Consistent efforts applied consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And like, so for example, I was in one emerging market and I said, the biggest challenge in this market is not the political process, is not the inefficiencies of the economy. The biggest problem here is actually negative thinking. And then all the executives kind of lean forward and they kind of like, yes, this is, you said it in very succinctly, but this is really what we're facing.
So that's probably a great spot for us to stop on negative thinking, the impact it has on us. When we see clips like this from Iron Will and from other movies we've talked about, that isn't part of the equation. And so I think if you're okay with that, I think we'll end this discussion on this one. But can we continue that negative thinking? And we'll talk about that in our future opportunities. Assad, this is always a pleasure, and thank you for doing this. So I'll look forward to us being together again, and the next video clip you're going to bring, and we'll just keep working forward through triangulated thinking and moving forward. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll look forward to hearing and seeing you again.
It's great to be with you.